Well, thank you. And graduates, first off, thank you so much for having me speak today. It's an honor to share the lessons I've learned kind of stumbling through life here. As I look out over the crowd gathered here to honor your accomplishments today, I see so many faces that taught me how to be a better person. Just a quick rundown of my life. I grew up on a farm just south of town, like you just said. I graduated from here in 1996. I was so lucky to grow up around people that were awesome teachers and motivators. It was an amazing environment to grow up in. I learned about science sitting in the grain truck at harvest with Mr. Larry Falk, which a lot of you guys had him as a teacher, right? How blessed was I to have that. My mom taught me how to be tough and work hard, yet still be kind to others. And my dad always has such an amazing attitude. I can still remember all the things, all the little sayings these guys used when I was a kid. Dad would be working on something on the farm and everything would be going wrong as usual. And he would say, where there's a will, there's a way. And he'd just keep going and we'd get it done, right? My Uncle Larry too, for you guys that had him in class know these as well. He had silly little life lessons. One of those still sticks out to me in my head today. And the one thing he always said was, a thank you costs nothing, but is worth everything. So never underestimate the power you have to influence others' lives with positive energy and good advice. You won't appreciate the education you got from NTCHS until you get further along in your schooling in your life. We were all so blessed to have the chance to attend a small school with such an amazing staff. This place also taught me humility, as we had one of the worst basketball teams ever to walk through the doors of this school. When I was a sophomore, we hadn't won a game all year, and we beat Dutton at the end of the season. I remember the fans storming the court like we had won the state championship, and they even threw us a pizza party afterwards in Sweetgrass. And just so you know, Mr. Now and Shane Berthelot were part of that all-star team as well. So, for those of you in the audience today that attended those blowout games, I'm very sorry, and thank you for supporting us even though we sucked. After high school, I attended MSU Northern. I got a degree in agronomy and went to work at CHS in Cutbank, which was a co-op where you applied fertilizer and scouted crops. While working 100-hour weeks there, I met some of my all-time favorite people. Even though the work kind of sucked, the bond you can develop with people when working that hard for a common goal is really pretty awesome. The best thing, though, was a couple years after I started that job, a cute new employee showed up there in Cutbank from Nebraska at the CHS grain elevator. I still remember the first time I met Wendy, and I thank God every day for randomly placing her in my life. This is one of the hundreds of God winks I've experienced in my life, and as most of you know me, I'm quirky and I like to talk about divine intervention stuff, right? So this isn't going to make you think I'm less crazy, probably, but if you just take a look, if you just take the time to watch for those things in your life, you'll see there's so many more than coincidences that happen to us. I believe God winks are the universe nudging us along down the path we're supposed to go, and if we follow those, we end up where we're supposed to be in life. These can be a bird that sits by you when you're having a bad day, or a phone call from a friend. Oftentimes you'll be the God wink for someone else if you just let them be. Sometimes these nudges are what seem like disasters at the time, but looking back, you'll see even the hard times, or especially the hard times, push us in a better direction in our lives. I eventually got up the courage to ask Wendy on a date. I told her to plan on going west to Cutbank, and after much discussion with her co-workers, they assumed I was taking her to a fancy steakhouse in Bath. Much to Wendy's surprise, it was actually a Hutterite harvest party. She sat with the women and I sat with the men. I can't imagine looking back on it, picking a much worse first date, but somehow she stuck with me after that and even agreed to marry me. So a week before our wedding, Gordon Puckett, longtime Sunburst elementary principal, which I'm sure many of you fondly remember, suffered a heart attack and passed away. Gordon was another person that had just such an amazing influence on my life. He was a family friend, and he did so much to inspire me in life, and he always understood, as we were kids, that no one was better than anyone else, and he had such an amazing heart for those with tough lives. I'd been helping Gordon in my off time with his insurance business, and his awesome family decided to sell it to Wendy and I. They even carried the note on the buyout. Another God wink situation, as it forced us a complete shift in the directions of our lives. And eventually we quit our jobs and we started KW Insurance. Nobody graduates high school thinking I want to be an insurance agent, or I don't think you guys are, anyways. We were broke and newly married, but we learned how to run the business on our own, and we were also blessed to have the chance. That eventually carried us to where we are today. There's been lots of ups and downs. We've made a lot of poor decisions along the way, and today I want to share with you some of the things we learned on this journey. So first off, expose yourself to as much positivity as you can. One saying we grew up with when computers first came out, which I know makes me sound pretty old here, but was garbage in, garbage out, right? We used to hear this phrase all the time, explaining that computer programs only work as well as the information that you put in it. If you read books or watch YouTube videos carrying positive messages or have advice on how to do better in your life, you're more likely to succeed. If you listen to crap, the odds of your life ending up in the crapper are pretty high. It's so easy these days to get wrapped up in social media or biased news. I always ask myself, does this make me feel angry or sad after I watch it or after I read it? And if it does, why am I doing that? One book that had a lot of influence on me was The 1 Minute Salesperson. This book talks about how we all have emotional bank accounts. The more good interactions you have with someone, the more currency you build in that account. In business, this could be doing a good job for a client, a small gift you give in appreciation for your business, etc. In life, this might be doing something nice for your spouse, attending a child's basketball game, or having supper with your parents. When you mess up, if you have a positive balance built up in their emotional bank account, you can afford to make a withdrawal. A withdrawal comes when you make a mistake or you do something hurtful. If you have a large enough positive balance, these withdrawals will be forgiven. If you've already drained that account, or you never had a good impression to start with, you most likely will lose that person as a friend or a client. Always keep a mental tab of where you're at with people's emotional bank accounts. Never assume you're entitled to anything. Just because we're a Sunburst business does not mean I should expect everyone in Sunburst to buy insurance from us. That's something to be earned, and once you're in a relationship, whether it's in business or personally, you must earn it and maintain it. We only get so much time here, and the older I get, the more I realize it's so much more important to make deposits in personal bank accounts than it is in the business side. If you put too much emphasis on work, which Wendy and I were definitely guilty of for a big part of our lives, and not enough on your family, friends, and spouse, you'll pay for it at some point. You never hear of someone on their deathbed saying they wish they worked more and spent less time with their loved ones. Griff By was one of the best people I ever knew at realizing that in life, right? And we all miss him in our lives, but he taught us to take ourselves not more seriously. So, one other great book that I just read, actually, that helps me a lot, especially if I'm anxious about something, is the 5-4-3-2-1 principle. It's by Mel Robbins. So, the gist of this book is, this is to push yourself past something you don't want to do or are scared to do. You just count backwards, 5-4-3-2-1, and you do it. So, want to start getting out of bed? Right away in the morning, wake up, count 5-4-3-2-1, and hop out of bed. The next morning, do it all over again. It's going to suck, but in 20 days or so, it becomes a habit. Are you anxious to call people back and keep putting it off? In my job, that happens a lot because I have a lot of uncomfortable phone calls. All I do now is I count backwards, 5-4-3-2-1, and I get it done. And it's amazing how much stress I've caused in my life by just not doing something right away, basically. I know this all sounds a little ridiculous, but it's helped me a lot with the day-to-day things that I have trouble doing. The last thing I want to share today is one of my favorite quotes. Albert Einstein said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing that it's stupid." Every one of you has a purpose in life. And one isn't more important than the other. Some of you might be rich, some of you might help the poor, some of you might take care of a sick loved one. You guys might not even notice, but there's so many people in this community that do things they never get credit for. When you drive into town, there's a welcome sign with flower pots done by a volunteer. Someone will have cooked a meal for someone that's having a hard time or lost a loved one. A person walking their dog picks up some garbage and tosses it in the dumpster. An EMT sits through another sporting event and tapes an ankle on some crying kid, even though they have 100 other things they'd rather be doing. The things Wendy and I have done in this community have been things that are very visual, that we get too much credit for. All the money spent on those visual things came from the community in the first place. It's the invisible things done by others that really make this place great. I believe there's a special place in heaven for those doing acts of invisible charity. There's nothing wrong with doing something you love as long as you're happy. That might be working at McDonald's. It might be running a huge company. I will say without a doubt from my personal experience in life, as the rapper Biggie Smalls said, more money, more problems, right? It's hard to see how many things that seem black and white at your age, I end up not being what they seem. That person with the drug problem, you will learn later on in life, went through unimaginable trauma. That weird kid in high school invents something amazing because his brain works in a different way than yours does. That cashier that was so rude to you at the store just lost her mother. One of my biggest regrets in life is how I treated kids that weren't considered normal when I was your age. So do the best to be kind and understanding of people. You really do never know what someone is going through. So thanks so much for inviting me to be part of your event. I hope you enjoy what will probably be the most free and exciting time of your lives.